watching us. We have a great show ahead of us. We are talking about finding the middle ground, how to resolve conflicts at work, at home, with friends. Also, is it a good idea to avoid conflicts or not? How confrontational should we be? Sometimes it can be too much. Sometimes it's good to clear the air. There's so many do's and don'ts. We have two great people coming on the show. You really don't want to miss it. Go and have a look at the sneak peek, and do please join us in the studio afterwards.
Conflicts, I think, are essential part of life.
You just have to understand that the other person is also human.
Is it the same for men?
It's not a problem, so let's not solve it.
There should be very, very clear to men that it's never about this or that.
Men are from Mars and women are from Venus. And simply,
You
know what?
I've got my head around this, Sumair.
Then there's a secret box in the man's mind, which is called nothing.
That is fantastic.
You know? So that's
It has women in them.
Why aren't you doing anything, you know?
Complaints like that, men get a chance to listen. You know.
But they don't.
Well, at least they pretend, so
As long as that, if your husband is saying one thing and the wife is saying another thing,
God, hey.
oh God.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yeah, we finally agree.
Agreed. Welcome back from the break. Thank you so much for staying on the show with us today. As you know, we're talking about finding the middle ground. And I think it very appropriate to say that we constantly have to strive to find the middle ground in our personal relationships, in our friendships, as well as at work. We have two of our favorite guests in the show. With us today in the studio, we have Sumair Abro and we have Asma Mustafa, both at Navitas. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you, Asma?
Very well. Thank you for having us.
And Sumair, how are you?
Doing great, yes.
And bahut mubarak ho, daddy.
Yes.
Have to say, because you know, proud daddy now, has a
Very,
little
very
daughter.
recent.
Very recent.
Yes.
Okay, we're talking about work and we're talking about resolving conflicts at work. First and foremost, even before we get to the stage of having conflicts, how do we avoid them?
We don't.
We don't avoid conflicts.
Yeah, you don't. Because when you avoid them, things escalate. And then it becomes, you know, something really big. And then when you confront a conflict like that, then it's, you know, it's this padda. So,
that's interesting, actually. So what you're saying is both of you actually are agreeing to this, that if you're having an issue with someone, then go up to them and talk to them about it.
Whatever your way of managing the conflict is, that can differ from person to person. But this entire notion of avoiding a conflict just so that it doesn't, just so that the disagreement doesn't happen, I would completely disagree with it. Because what you're doing is you're not letting it erupt. Yes, you manage the eruption somehow, but you know, that's your own way again. Okay. But you don't let it fizzle down somewhere. You manage
because
it, you talk about it. Because then when it's going to erupt, that's going to be bad and you won't be able to manage it properly.
Yeah, because when you avoid, see, okay, now there are different situations.
Yeah.
At times you avoid a conflict for a little while, but then you confront it later.
Yeah.
But if you just let it go, it'll just linger on, and then it's really bad for your self-esteem. And then it may be your temper or your aggressiveness will come out in something else, and that's not very good. I mean, not good for relationships, not good for organizations. So one example which comes to me, there's this international airlines. I won't quote the name. In the previous century, for the 20 years, what was happening was they had like 3-4 plane crashes. So they tried to figure out what's wrong. You know how they are. So they figured out that there was nothing wrong with the equipment, nothing wrong with the technology. So it boiled down to the communication problem between the pilot and the co-pilot.
Good God.
Okay, so what was happening was that in critical situations, the pilot was taking decisions and the co-pilot knew that something is wrong, but he wouldn't speak up to avoid conflicts because it was part of their culture. I mean, similar to what's happening in Pakistan. Since we are, told from the word go that, be nice to the older people and try to avoid conflicts. So conflicts, if you avoid them, can, result in catastrophes.
Okay, what's interesting is because when you talk about conflicts and avoiding them, and obviously you're promoting the fact that it is not a good idea to avoid them altogether. As you said, you can delay them and then confront them later. You keep bringing up the fact that it can get aggressive. And you keep bringing up the fact that, it'll get unpleasant. So it's interesting how to see a difference there as well, that men will automatically get too aggressive, that wo phat padenge eventually, and wo resentful ho ke pagal ho jayenge. Hai na?
The giggle is because I know Sumair a little too well. So maybe that's what the giggle is about, but yeah, you're quite right on that.
It comes to that. Okay, you brought up something really interesting, Sumair. You said you are now working in an industry where, you know, the industry is changing. Gone are the days when seniority came with age, came with experience. You know, you've been in the job for at least 10 years, then you'll become a director, or, you know, 20 years, then you'll become more senior. Now, you know, you have CEOs who are in their late 20s, 30s, 40s. Yes. So what do you do in a situation if you are having an issue with someone that is a senior person, age-wise, particularly? What is the best way to approach them? And because socially that's a problem as well. Yes. Tameez comes into it. Just bardasht kar lo, kuch nahi hota, chalo chodo, bade hain. How do you deal with a situation like that? Asma,
it's different in different organizations. I think we've worked with government organizations, public organizations, private organizations. So you can clearly see a different culture in every organization. But I think it will be fair to say that as a corporate culture, that is evolving. I don't know about the social culture, hence I've made the demarcation of a corporate culture. It's evolving. We're getting towards open structures, we're getting towards open door policies and all of that. So in essence, if you have a situation of the sort where you're having a conflicting situation or a disagreement with your senior executive, the best way is to communicate. I wouldn't think there is any other methodology than to communicate. How you communicate is completely your call. Whether you think, you know, written expression is the best medium in the organization that you're working in, whether you think taking an appointment and going through the proper channel and actually getting your message across to the person direct face to face is the right medium, then you opt for that. And a lot of time you can see a lot of grapevine, because if I have an issue with Sumair, who's my CEO, I would go and talk to Sonia, who's not my CEO but my manager, whoever. So when the manager communicates the message, and this is something so simple that we've been, it's always a twisted one. It's always something different.
I think it also depends issue to issue, because you know, some issues you want to resolve on email, some issues you feel you need to go, and that makes sense. So you have to gauge. You
have to decide what is your company culture like, what is the I think what is the personality of the person that you're communicating with, what is your personality. A lot of times we've had people that, you know, who are not very comfortable with face to face, who are much better when they use the medium of a telephone or email. So you assess the culture, you assess the other person, you assess yourself, and I think you assess the time most importantly. A lot of times it would be your burning desire to solve an issue, but understanding that this is not a priority for the organization or for that individual right now, because there are 10 other burning items on his or her shoulder. So I think you just have to understand that the other person is also human. A lot of times we feel that, oh, you know, because we were in a situation or because of the XYZ person, you know. So you just understand that he or she is also human and they can also err.
So I never thought I'd see a day when you weren't talking constantly. Asma, congratulations.
She wins.
I mean, you rubber water cooler आपका हुआ, क्योंकि ये मैंने जिंदगी में पहले नहीं देखा है कि Sumair
Sumair को तो जोर बोल रहा है.
I think you haven't met him with his wife, have you?
No, I haven't. Yes. Usually we have him to ourselves, you know, in the show. But is it the same for men, Sumair? Because I know that their attitude towards approaching things is very, very different from women.
And as a female, maybe it's my way to talk. I don't know what your male perspective would be.
If I put the same scenario to you, that if it is a very senior, age-wise person, and I'd like to add here that it's not necessary that they're the chief executive. Maybe it's actually someone who's in a junior position to you. Because I think that would change the dynamics completely. How would you as a man within, you know, corporate culture deal with that situation?
I think what Asma earlier said, actually firstly depends on the culture of the organization. Okay. Secondly, going back to that international airline example, you have to decide principles or position. Okay. The idea is to, you know, go with principles first, because in that case, the principle should have been that if something wrong is happening, you know, I should raise my voice. Okay. But then how do you raise your voice? That's also the key factor. Like Asma said, that at times you just, you know, the timing can be wrong. You can just, you know, you are thinking that the issue is very important, but the other person also has some other issues. Having said that, if you think too much about these things, oh no, not right now, later, not right now, tomorrow, then you're just sulking and everything is building up inside you. So honestly
don't
speaking,
procrastinate.
honestly speaking, I don't think there is no good time to resolve a conflict or bad time. It really depends. I think how good you are at influencing other people.